Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Campbell, and today I will be answering the question, what is the most important thing to remember for crisis communication? Every day, organizations run the risk of being affected. The fact that we live in an age of transparency means that no company or organization is immune to the threat of a possible crisis. Companies have become glass houses in which nothing can remain hidden. Everything is expected to be visible. In this presentation, we will talk about how to deal with a crisis when it strikes. First, we will talk about the 5 rules when a crisis strikes. The 5 rules are, number 1, you need to communicate immediately. Number 2, if you don't talk, others will. Number 3, saying no comment is the same as saying we're guilty. Number 4, facts are not enough. And number 5, get it all out. With the first rule, you need to communicate immediately. That means don't lose any time. When a crisis strikes, in order to maintain your reputation, you really need to get out there and talk to the public and let them know about the crisis that's going on. With the second rule, if you don't talk, others will. If you don't address the crisis, others will start to assume. With number 3, saying no comment is the same as saying we're guilty. It really does mean that you are guilty. When the media comes to you and asks questions about your crisis, you really need to have an answer. You need to have a handle on all of the hard questions and know exactly what to say to the media. With number 4, facts are not enough. They aren't enough. You need to let the public know about why the crisis happened, how it could have been prevented, and what you're going to do to prevent it if a crisis like this could happen again. And number 5, get it all out. Talk about the entire crisis and let everyone know what exactly happened. Tell the truth, answer questions, and give real-world examples. To get around a crisis, you need a plan for one. Since today, our generation is so connected, everyone knows exactly what's going on. If a crisis strikes, people will know immediately. In order to prepare for crises, you need to ensure that you and your company have a plan. The crisis communication plan is an essential tool in dealing with a crisis, disaster, or accident. Every company, regardless of the sector that it operates in, the type of activity or size of the company, should have an up-to-date crisis plan. So what exactly is a crisis communication plan? When you find yourself in a crisis communication situation, you have one goal: to protect the reputation of the organization by communicating the right message at the right time to the right people. Elements of an effective communication plan are to have the right message, to whom that message should be told to, who should tell it, and to tell it at what time. Every single organization should have a crisis team together. This is nothing like the person in your department who gets an extra bonus for being first aid trained. Your crisis team needs to be small, agile, alert, and reachable. A team that needs to have absolute authority and won't be afraid to tell other board members what to do. In your crisis team, you will need to have a mouth, a brain, and hands. The mouth is the spokesperson, the brain is the crisis committee, and the hands are the doer. With crisis communication, it's all about the planning. Since we have talked about what is included in a crisis team, now you need some groundwork. This is the hard work that is needed to make a crisis communication successful. You will need internal communication, the planning process, and then during a crisis. Let's talk about internal communication rules. The name of the game is control, and that can only happen if there is open communication among the team members. Every member of the team probably already has a mobile phone and individual email address. If they operate outside a mobile network range for long periods of time, they will probably not have a satellite phone. If they don't, make it happen. You can only control a crisis if you can all communicate. Since today is all about communication, and people can find out information at the tips of their fingers, it is important that all team members are readily available if a crisis strikes. A crisis can strike at any time, and it is crucial that you are prepared. The goal of your proactive crisis communication plan is to develop and protect the reputation of your organization by communicating the right message at the right time to the right people. If you don't seize control, there will be an information vacuum that will be filled by the media as they feel fit. As I talked about before, you need to select the right crisis team. There has to be a mouth, a brain, and hands to your crisis team, allowing you to think clearly, communicate effectively, and act quickly. Next, I talked about the internal communication rules. This is how the organization will communicate with itself during a crisis. A crisis directory is set up. The communication flow is defined, and we set up templates to record and track media inquiries. The last step of the proactive communication plan is defined in 4 distinct areas. You should first define the various targets with whom you may need to communicate with. You then need to develop ready-made tools that are easy to pick up in a crisis situation. Next, you need to determine the possible messages that are pre-approved to use in a crisis communication. They should be thought about, developed, and approved. Lastly, take note of how quickly you can move in a crisis situation and further develop the plan so that an organization can move as quickly as possible. As Nick Layton says, there's no substitute for media training. No comment just won't cut it anymore. The goal of crisis communication is to protect the organization's reputation and profitability. Even an operational crisis response that is handled well can be overshadowed by a spokesperson who is hostile when interviewed by the media. Just like Nick stated, it is crucial that all crisis team members are trained to better handle a crisis and better protect the reputation of an organization. If you don't talk, the reporters will find someone who will. Your competitors, local politicians, or former employees. It is unlikely that they will put in a good word for you. The 2 keys to successful crisis media training are preparation and practice. When media training, it is important to ensure the right team is trained so that there is full coverage should a crisis occur. Teach your employees how they should respond in crisis situations, how they should deal with journalists when they are not authorized to speak to journalists, etc. Regularly schedule trainings to ensure that all employees know exactly what's going on so that they can handle a crisis in any type of situation. Crisis communication is one of the most important elements for an organization these days. Since the internet is so open and can spread information so quickly, it is important that you have a great relationship with the media, the public, and to whoever else you communicate with. A crisis communication plan should always be set up to prevent crises, or when a crisis strikes, to make sure that it happens as quickly as it can. Nick Layton taught us a lot about risk in communication in his SCC 420 class. I learned a lot about crisis communication and how to make a crisis communication plan successful. I hope this video helped you answer the question on what is the most important aspect of crisis communication. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.